Hi, it's the M.L.M for the Soul channel, and I do have a new topic for today. Before I begin, I just want to say, may the words and expressions of my mouth and the thoughts and meditations of my heart find favor and acceptance before you, Hashem. And some people I want to thank who have inspired me. I hope they can inspire you as well. And I will have links below this video to their sites. They are Rabbi Shalom Arush, Rabbi Lazer Brody, Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi, Rabbi Eli Mansour, Rabbi Alona Nava, Rabbi Yuval Ovadia, Rav Daniel Asor, Nisan Baruch Black, David Sachs, and Rabbi Michael Skobac, Jews for Judaism. And also, if you've never checked out this channel before, then I will have a link below, right below this video, to the first video that I've done that explains what M.L.M for the Soul stands for and what it is I'm doing. So today is part 3 from this book, Iggeres Ha'Ramban, a letter for the ages, Ramban, I should say. I call this the Ramban's Mussar letter, and this is part 3. So I usually do 3 days at a time, and today we're going to do days 7 through 9, and continue from there. So day 7 says, Ekev anava yirat Hashem, va'avor ha'anava taleh libcha midat hayira. On the heels of humility comes the fear of Hashem. That's Proverbs 22:4. Through humility, the fear of Hashem will intensify in your heart. And again, I have this little chart, kind of make it easier for you to kind of follow along. So, humility and fear of Hashem. Genuine humility is synonymous with fear of Hashem. Such fear is essentially nothing other than a sense of surrender to the Almighty. The arrogant man harbors illusions of self-sufficiency and independent power. The truly humble person, however, recognizes that Hashem is the only source of strength. He surrenders his independent self to Hashem and seeks to merge his will with that of his Creator. So everything, as we say, Enon Lovado, there's nothing but Hashem. Everything comes from Him. So we have to humble ourselves to realize that, like, there's nothing that we see or hear or anything that isn't from Him. Chavavos Halevavos relates that a pious man was once found sleeping in the wilderness. He was asked, what caused you to remain calm and to endure the dread of lions and other wild beasts? So the pious man replied, I stand holy before the Almighty, in whose presence I am fearful to fear anything other than He Himself. So he's more fearful to fear anything else but Him, so he's not fearful of anything outside of that. The Jerusalem Talmud demonstrates the interrelationship between humility and fear of Hashem. Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar taught the quality which wisdom considers to be its crowning glory, humility considers to be no more than the heel of its shoe. Of wisdom it says, Reshit Chachma Yirat Hashem, the beginning of wisdom is a fear of Hashem, that's from Tehillim. One cannot begin to comprehend divine wisdom without actively striving for fear of heaven. But in reference to humility, it says, Ekev anava yirat Hashem. On the heel of humility comes the fear of Hashem. Through humility, one is naturally filled with reverence and awe for the Almighty. In light of this, Cheshbono Shel Olam observes that the scholar who amasses knowledge but has no fear of his Creator is similar to an emperor who struts about with a magnificent crown in his head, yet remains barefoot. So, he's someone that's of significance, but yet he doesn't wear shoes. He wears this fancy crown, so it doesn't connect. Okay, the next paragraph, a concentrated awareness. The Rambam shows how a heightened awareness of Hashem's presence fills one with the feeling of humility. How does a person acquire love and fear of Hashem? When he contemplates Hashem's handiwork and analyzes His amazing and wondrous creations, he witnesses Hashem's wisdom, which has no measure or limit. Immediately he is filled with love and praise for Hashem and yearns to know Him. Such thoughts fill the person with a profound sense of awe. He recoils in the realization that he's nothing more than a frail creature standing in the presence of the Almighty, the source of perfect wisdom. This is as King David said, when I behold the heavens and the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is the frail human that you should remember him? And what is the son of mortal man that you should be mindful of him? And ultimately, it is the acute awareness of Hashem's presence that brings one to true humility. So, seeing everything around, even the tiniest little creature, something you like, wow, you have to be in awe of the amazingness of His brilliance and His design of the world. Humility draws on strength. Rabbi Yecheskel Levenstein warns that humility should never be confused with timidity. That's how you pronounce it, being timid. The timid person who indiscriminately seeks to please acts from weakness rather than from strength. Like the angry man who is servile is more than likely insecure. His actions stem less from an awareness of Hashem than from a deep mistrust of him. The generally humble spirit, however, is an exalted one. His security with himself allows him to understand that, alone and without Hashem, his existence is insignificant. As he draws close to his Creator, his heart overflows with quiet bliss. And the next paragraph is called an ultimate yardstick. Va'ish Moshe anav ma'od mikol adam asher al pnei ha'adamah. The man Moses was exceedingly humble, more than any man on the face of the earth. This is from Bamidbar. It is inconceivable that Moses, the leader and redeemer of millions of Jews, could feel insignificant. He performed the awesome miracles which humbled Egypt's empire, stood up upon Har Sinai as the heavens open and the Master of the universe reveals himself. Clearly, Moshe was aware of his greatness. So the tells of Rabbi Yosef Le Blach explain that one can soar to the pinnacle of success and still remain humble. So how is this possible? Humility depends more than anything else upon the personal yardstick one chooses. If a 6-foot man measures himself against one who stands 5 feet, he can boast of his height. However, if he measures himself against the height of the sun, which is 93 million miles above him, his height seems negligible. So it's like all a comparison thing. What's greater than you? The world. You could start from the tiniest creature, you're bigger than that, and then what's bigger than you, and keep going on. Similarly, man wax proud only when they measure themselves against smaller men. When one measures himself against the infinite and eternal Creator, he understands his own relative insignificance. Thus, precisely because Moshe achieved such a tangible closeness to Hashem, was he humbled more than any man to have walked the earth. One's greatness as a person depends perhaps on the degree to which he can truly perceive his Creator's presence and make such an ultimate yardstick reality for himself. So you see, he was, even though he was, the closest to Hashem, like he could boast, but compared to to the Creator, who's eternal and infinite and endless and, supreme, omnipotent, omniscient, he was like nothing. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to say, I forgot to say that this is an Artscroll Series book, and I'll have a link to Artscroll below as well to check out all their Judaica. I just forgot to mention that. So now, day 8. Ki titein el libcha tamid, me'ayin bata l'ona taholech, she'ata rima v'tolea b'chayecha v'af ki b'motach. The fear of Hashem. Oops, wrong page. I already did that one. The fear of Hashem will intensify in your heart, for you will always be aware from where you have come and to where you are destined to go. You will realize that in life you are as frail as the maggot or the worm, all the more so in death. So that's a long one. So this statement is based on the mission in Avos, which offers 3 deterrents to sin, to keep you away from them. So Akavia ben Mahalalel said, consider 3 things you'll never fall into the grip of sin. Know from where you came to where you're going and before whom you are destined to be judged and called to account. The Mesilas Yesharim explains, all the above thoughts counteract pride and promote humility. When a man ponders his earthly nature and lowly beginnings, he sees little reason to feel proud. Man's position is similar to that of a swineherd who has attained lordship. Only as long as he remembers his early days will it be impossible for him to become arrogant. So someone who changes from, let's say, being poor to rich, if he keeps remembering the days when he had nothing, when he barely even had shoes or clothing, it'll always keep him humble. But if he becomes proud and he forgets his early days, his early beginnings, then he will just, let that go. So the idea is to remember what happened beforehand, to keep humble. Next paragraph, when mortality becomes tangible. The source of humility is alluded to once again in Avos. Rabbi Levitas of Yavne says, be exceedingly humble in spirit, for the anticipated end of a mortal man is the worm. It is difficult for man to cast off the illusion that he will live forever, yet to the extent that he succeeds, he will attain humility. So I'm just going to paraphrase the story. It was about the wealthy Rothschild families. I believe they were bankers, so they were known for being very pious. So one of them every day would disappear at about noon and return an hour later, and everyone was curious where he was going, so one of the clerks there followed his carriage. And where did he go? To a Jewish cemetery. And when he got there, he took off his, beautiful coat and his silk hat, and instead he put on the shrouds, the tachrichim, of the mace, of the dead person. So what he would do, he would step into the open grave, and he lay down there, and he would repeat over and over again the words of this rabbi. Be exceedingly humble in spirit, for the anticipated end of mortal man is the worm. So he put himself in that place to be humble, to stay humble. Like, it doesn't matter how much money I made, and how wealthy I am, I'm still going to end up in the same place as everyone else. So then the person who wrote this is saying this as well. Once I accompanied my father-in-law, that tells the Rosh Yeshiva Harav Mordechai Gifter in Yerushalayim, after he visited the grave sites on Har HaZeisim, he told me of mystical texts which write that preparing one's burial place in one's lifetime is considered meritorious and helps one secure a longer life in the heavenly accounting. Indeed, when death starts to become a tangible reality, one is more likely to improve the spiritual quality of his days and thus merit long life. And then the last one for this day is called A Night in the Graveyard. And this is from the Talmud Brachos. So the Talmud teaches us a person should seize every opportunity to do battle with his evil inclination. If he triumphs, all is well. Yet if he fails, he should engage in vigorous Torah study. If this subdues his desire for evil, all is well. And if he does not, let him recite the Shema, the credo of the Jewish faith. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He didn't know. If he then succeeds, all is well. But if he does not, a last resort, let him picture the day of death. This vision will undoubtedly destroy evil's allure. So, again, the Talmud in Brachos tells a story. I'm just going to paraphrase of a chassid who, on Rosh Hashanah Eve, he gave a coin to a beggar, and his wife was very upset with him because they were very poor, and he should have kept it for himself. And he got angry and he quarreled with her, and he decided to leave and spend the night sleeping in the local graveyard. So Rabbi Yisrael Salanter explains that the chassid recognized his anger represents a shortcoming in his character. And the genuinely humble person accepts life's complexities with serenity, usually, and he didn't accept it that way. So then he felt unprepared to be examined by the Almighty on the day of judgment, while still harboring such a serious flaw in his nature. So he slept in the cemetery to overwhelm his pride quickly. So nothing so wholly convinced a man of his own frailty as contemplating his inevitable mortality. So that helped him, realize, his end. So now the last part for today is for day 9. It is this sense of humility which reminds you of the one before whom you will be called for judgment, the King of Glory. So the paragraph, channeling energy. The statement is also based on the words of Akavi ben Mahalal, cited above, who concludes his list of returns to sin with this advice: remember before whom you are destined to be summoned for judgment and accounting, for the King of Kings and Holy One, blessed be He. The Holy One. The Vilna Gaon questions why the Tana Akavi repeated himself by using 2 terms to describe the final reckoning. He said din and cheshbon in Hebrew. I read it in English, but so din is judgment and cheshbon is accounting. So how do we apply this? He explained judgment is rendered for a sinful act which was already committed, while accounting is an additional reckoning that we've made of the positive deeds which could have become accomplished with the energy used for the sin. So the energy used to do something wrong, all that could have been used to do something good. So that's where the accounting comes in. Do you know that for this and this that you did, you could have used, you did to do something good. So that's where there's an accounting for. One will be called to task not only for the sin itself, but for the tragic misuse of his precious time and energy. In this way, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter once chastised a man who physically attacked his neighbor. The rabbi informed him that he committed 2 sins. One was you struck and harmed your fellow human being. And second, the energy you spent to accomplish this could have been used constructively. So that waste of time is a very grave offense. Next paragraph, laundering the royal robes. Rav Chaim of Volozhin cites in Shabbos 125b, which presents a parable of the king who lent his garb to 2 groups of men. So again, I'm just going to paraphrase. So one group returned the clothes soiled and all messed up and tarnished. They didn't care. The wise man gave everything back better in the condition than he received. They were laundered, they were sparkling white, and polished to a dazzling shine. So the Talmud concludes that Hashem too lends every human being a fragment of his glory, a celestial soul. Fools sully their souls with the blemishes of transgression, while the wise polish them with mitzvah. So, you have that choice, what you want to do. On the day of reckoning, transgressors will be summoned to judgment for tarnishing their divine soul, and will be subject to an accounting for failing to enhance them. So both the things again, they'll be judged for tarnishing it, and then they'll be held in account for not doing the good. The twofold effect, next paragraph. Beis HaLevi from Parshas Noach, I should say, observe the twofold effect in every sin. Wrongdoing both defiles a man and exerts an influence on others who are led to follow the example of the transgressor. So not only do you do wrongdoing, but you influence others as well. This is especially true of one who enjoys position of prestige. If he acts scrupulously, his example is a shining one. Yet if he corrupts his position, who can tell how many multitudes are led astray by his influence? So like the head of a community, a leader, you see him act a certain way, or his wife, and you just look at it as, I guess it must be okay because they're heads of the community, and it may not be okay. You may think it is, but it actually isn't. Indeed, the effects of one man's wrongdoing is not limited to the present. It continues as well. The children, the grandchildren, they all learn to do this. It is in this indirect yet wide-ranging influence of sin which is also brought to judgment the day of final accounting. So, in the end they say that the leader is really responsible for his community, for his people, just like the king and his subjects. So you have to make a good impression. You have to do what's right. You have to follow the Torah, the MS. You don't make your own ideas and concessions. It just doesn't work the way. There's no shortcuts. So, picturing the day of judgment, the next paragraph. Mesilas Yesharim visibly illustrates the advice of Akavi ben Mahalalel to remember the day of judgment. One should paint a sharp mental picture of what he will experience after death, when he is presented to the heavenly court for judgment in view of the celestial legions. The defendant will stand in front of the King of Kings, the ultimate source of sanctity and purity. The Almighty is surrounded by ministering angels who carry out his wishes with absolute perfection. He, the defendant, will stand exposed to their intense scrutiny, painfully aware of the worst of his actions. Overwhelmed, will the defendant be able to raise his head? Will he dare open his mouth? If the court should ask, have you lost your tongue? Where is the honor and glory that you have prided yourself in your lifetime? What shall he answer? How can anyone respond to this rebuke? If one would for even a moment form a true, forceful impression of this idea, his pride would take flight from him, never to return. So if you really take that to heart all the time, every time you're thinking of saying something or doing something or whatever that's prideful or arrogant or not humble, you're just like, think about what you're going to be coming in front of, and then they're going to say, where have you lost your mouth now? Now you can't say anything. You're able to say it in your lifetime when you live in the physical world. Now the cat got your tongue, so to speak. You're not going to know where to hide. So, and the final paragraph is called Silent Witnesses. The Talmud describes how evidence will be presented to the heavenly tribunal for the final judgment. One who thinks, I can sin in the privacy of my home, who will testify against me, is mistaken. The very stone walls and wooden beams which now conceal will cry out later and condemn his hidden sins. Indeed, a person's own soul which resides within him will bear witness of his wrongdoings. So when passes on to eternal rest, the deeds he performed through his lifetime will precede him on his last journey. When the court issues its verdict, the one who is overwhelmed with sin has no choice but to attach his signature to a written confession and humbly accept the sentence, saying, this verdict is indeed true and just. So this is some real intense information to take in, and I just want to say in closing that I hope we really pay attention to what the Ramban is saying, that we really have to know from where we've come, where we have come to where we are destined to go, and to who we're going to be given our accounting, our judgment and accounting in front of. So, and to really pay attention to doing as much as we can now to improve our fate, to improve the end result, because now in this world is when we have time. And I hope that we can all focus on that, and that should also help to bring that we should merit and live and see the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days, and the rebuilding of our everlasting Beis HaMikdash. Amen, and thanks for watching.